All right, we're live.
Hello, I'm Matt Bergman, and you are listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast, episode 223. Tonight, I'm here with Jared Schneiderman.
Hey, guys.
Philip Dassing.
What's going on?
Alexis Schlegel.
What's up, everybody?
And Michael Heise,
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
founder of the Mises Caucus.
Mises, man.
Mises?
Oh, shit,
like
dude.
pieces.
Okay.
Mises Pieces.
All right, okay. Founder of the Mises Caucus. And Michael Heise, he traveled like 2 hours to be here. 2 hours and some change, huh?
Yeah, like 2 hours 15, something like that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
It's goddamn Libertarians being late.
So why are you here this week? What are you looking to promote?
Well,
what are you looking to talk about?
What's in it for you, dude?
Fame and power. So what I'm here to promote is the launch of the Bzees Pack. We've actually so the caucus is still there, and there's a lot of people involved, but we've actually just launched Bzees Pack.
So how does this differ from the fudge pack that Alexis always talking about?
What are the goals of the fudge pack?
Alex?
The fudge pack?
No, tell us about the Mises pack.
So it's to my understanding, it's the first ever hybrid pack that is aimed at supporting the LP.
Hybrid pack, but is that indica and sativa?
Yeah. It's a fucking hippie speedball, man. So what it is so what it means to be a hybrid pack is that we're one committee. So there's one board of directors, and there's two bank accounts that we have at our disposal. So one is what we would call a traditional pack, and one is a super PAC, and there's different things that we can do with them. So with the traditional PAC, what we're doing is we're raising money in order to support local and county level candidates around the country. And we've actually recently we just cleared the $1,000 a month mark coming in. So that's pretty good. I'm pretty sure that places us as doing better than a bunch of state libertarian parties themselves. And
Wow.
And then the super PAC side of things, what we want to do is support basically issue coalitions. So ballot initiatives in the states that have them. Unfortunately, Maryland here is not one of them. But ballot initiatives in the states that allow them, and lobbying, essentially, where they don't. But the lobbying is going to be focused. I mean, if there's state efforts that are going on that we can help with, absolutely, but more at the local and county level again. So a good example of that would be there was recently the psilocybin initiative in Denver, Colorado, that passed. So Denver, Colorado now has completely decriminalized mushrooms. And we got involved with that before it was on the ballot. And to make a long story short, it passed with less than 2,000 votes.
Oh, wow.
So, we got the executive director of that effort on the Tom Woods Show, on several libertarian podcasts. We got volunteers to work for it. So I don't know.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it is awesome. And it's something that is a particular issue that means a lot to me. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, with that short of a margin, I think it actually helped.
Probably had some influence, yeah.
So and what's cool about the issue coalitions thing is that there's like these little ripple effects that you can't really see, but that are very important. Like, so I've in my last phone call with this guy shortly before the vote for it was counted, he is now identifying himself as a libertarian. So like that's one ripple effect that's cool.
Yeah.
Another ripple effect that came out of that is after that passed, like 3 weeks later, the city council in Oakland, California, passed an ordinance that upped the ante. So they actually decriminalized all natural psychedelics. So they decriminalized, shrooms, ibogaine, DMT, ayahuasca, peyote.
Yeah, peyote, everything.
I think
So
I said
anything that's
ibogaine.
not made in a lab but psychedelic?
Yeah, I've never done any of them.
That's crazy, man. You ever tried DMT? That's crazy, man.
It's crazy, man.
I have.
It's entirely possible.
But and then so that's a ripple effect because the Denver thing kind of opened the avenue for that, and then the ripple effect out of that is the organization that headed up that effort. I was reading articles that said that they've had over 80 organizations contact them saying, hey, let me get that language. Hey, how did you do that? So this is going to be something that continues to spread out, and we got in on the ground level with people who kind of started it and have a chance to continue to affect this. And it's like I said, it's something that's important to me because I think, well, one, I think the psychedelics are going to be the next domino in the drug war.
Sure.
But not only that, I think as a result of that, it's going to be a revolution in mental health care.
Yeah. Are you familiar with MAPS?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they sort of have a hand in this at all, or?
So they're the nonprofit that essentially funds all of the research, and the research is what's legitimizing these efforts.
Okay. Very cool.
So basically, there's the research is actually kind of headed out of Baltimore at Johns Hopkins University. Now, there's also research done at New York University. There's several overseas places that engage in this research, but Johns Hopkins has been leading the charge for a while now.
So you yourself, are you a partaker of the shrooms?
Every once in a while. It's healthy.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
But it's all in how you do it.
Oh,
it's not for fun.
Tell us, dude.
It's not for fun. That's the thing, is I think people think of these things as fun. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that you can't have fun on them. But
well, yeah, of course.
But people have been using them ritualistically for thousands of years, and essentially using them religiously for thousands of years. And there's a reason for that. And the science is now finding that reason.
So, like, how would you describe a mushroom trip for you?
For me?
Mm-hmm.
I've tried. You know what's fucked up about it is I've tried to have fun with it and I can't. Like, I've tried to take it at festivals and shit, and I feel too vulnerable. I'm like, I got to get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, I can't do it. No, for me, it's I go through a whole emotional process to clear myself before I'm ready for it, and then I would say it's kind of like facing myself. You know, and I think it brings up things in a person that they wouldn't otherwise be faced with. And if you're prepared for that, you can learn from that and progress as a person. And that's basically what the science is showing. Because, so like one of the big studies that they did at Johns Hopkins was they did studies to see if it could help people quit cigarettes, right? So the patch has like a 30 or 35% rate of people who actually quit long term. Mm-hmm. Shrooms, 70%. Damn. And
wow.
And the method of how that happens is completely different from the patch. So the patch or the gum is like trying to introduce a new neurochemical to counteract the withdrawal.
Right.
Isn't shrooms something that some people quote microdose?
Yeah, I've never screwed around with that though.
Yeah, so microdosing, I assume it's just taking a very small amount of mushrooms.
Yeah, they do it with acid too, but that's really popular in Silicon Valley.
But hold on, so what's the process for tobacco cessation with mushrooms?
So essentially, they go in there now. Part of it is, and this is going to be no matter what the method is that to quit, they have to want to quit.
Yeah,
that's a vital part of it. But essentially, they go in there, they trip, and they come out of it saying, "I don't want to do this anymore. I could see what it was doing to me."
Wow.
And that dovetails with some other studies they did, because in the beginning, some of the first studies they did was to see, all right, can we induce what they call a mystical experience or a religious experience? So they extrapolated all the different characteristics of a religious experience and basically said, okay, we can quantify this. Now, can we get dosage to reliably induce it? Then they did that. So once they started doing these clinical trials for all these other things, they did interviews with all of the people that did it. And it's a very high rate of people who say that the psychedelic experience was one of the most spiritually significant in their lives. And they even said, like, on par with the birth of their first child or death of their first parent.
Oh, wow.
And for me, the reason it's an important issue for me and one that I'm particularly like passionate about is because it cured my depression when I was 19, you know, and I didn't know what I know now. I just thought it was like this freak occurrence. Yeah. But it was definitely like...
So you didn't take it with the intent of curing it? You just was sort of a side effect?
Yeah, no, I took it and went to a basketball court with my friend and then basically started having revelations on the court and had to go home and talk to my parents.
Oh, wow.
Did your parents know you were tripping?
Yeah, that was the first thing I said.
Oh, wow. So I guess your parents are pretty cool.
On the court?
Yeah, I was trying.
You were making
No.
He was like, I now know how to shoot threes.
But I have
consistently.
I have a buddy I know who does it. He mushrooms, but with tea. Like they make it into like a tea form, and like so they'll drink the tea. And he says he doesn't see anything. It's this feeling he gets, like just he feels so much better about himself, and the next day he feels like he's like a newer person, and it like lasts, and he says it like brings up his mood. And he doesn't know anything about like the research of it or anything. He was just telling me like, yeah, like, I just have it in this tea and I don't hallucinate. I just feel like so good, and I feel like all the like weight's been lifted off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And it's nothing hallucinogenic to him at all.
Thanks,
So-
Dr. Phil.
I've never done it before, so I guess what he's.
Okay, so Alexis, have you tried shrooms?
No, I never have.
You got to
But-
work on that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, just listening to podcasts and like hearing a lot about kratom. I was listening to Tom Wood's podcast when I forget who the
John
guest. He had
Bush.
John Bush on there talking about kratom.
I actually tried kratom, and it was like when I was doing the
Yeah, I did
podcast
too.
one night,
Oh wow.
and
Didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, I mean, I
personally.
was already
No.
smoking weed and drinking beer, so I was already like 2 steps flying, and then I tried the
okay,
kratom.
so-
I don't think kratom. I haven't done it yet. I have some at home, and I haven't done it yet. But I don't think it's supposed to be. I don't think it should be classified as drugs or anything like that, like weed. Like that, kratom is in the same
It's like a
family as
tea, right?
coffee. Yeah,
like,
it's
like
well, it's like a cousin to coffee. So like what I've heard is that it might give you some euphoria, but the important thing about kratom is that it attaches itself to the same receptors as opioids do, and that's why people recommend it for pain.
yeah, because it was used a lot by laborers in like Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
That's how it became.
Malaysia,
So a lot of laborers who were doing intense jobs, like to kind of just treat arthritis or just day-to-day aches and pains. So it's like kind of instead of popping an Advil at the end of the day, or people are like constantly on aspirin, I guess it would just be like a natural way of.
Or opioids.
Like,
A lot of people,
exactly.
breaking free from heroin, have had great success with kratom. And then, it's just crazy to hear, some politicians want to make it illegal, we got this drug war. If you really wanted to fight heroin, kratom sounds
That's
like
great
the
you're
most
making these inroads,
reasonable.
because you look at
option.
cities, especially like with the heroin crisis going on, and a lot of we see it everywhere.
Well, that's one aspect of it, and another aspect of it is that in the name of the opioid crisis, so in Pennsylvania, a bill just passed both the House and the Senate that would make it so that doctors can only prescribe a week's worth of opioids to combat the opioid crisis. And our governor has declared emergency on the opioids like 5 times or something like that. And like, I'm not going to get into details, but I have a pretty seriously injured father, and that's going to, he's going to have to go to the doctor every single week. And imagine what this is going to have to do with the workflow of the doctors. They're going to fall behind.
Right.
And the consequence of this is, I don't know if you guys know anybody who would have a negative quality of life if they didn't have their medication, but people kill themselves. Like people are so completely racked by pain without these things on a 24/7 endless basis that they kill themselves.
Right.
And it's not uncommon.
Sure.
So that's really fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
and so if you're going to block off options and then do that and basically regulate the medical field in a way that is extremely disadvantaged to legitimate patients in the name of saving addicts or something,
Right.
then yeah, you get some pretty serious backlash.
Well, I think actually it'll probably cause more addicts, because then when people can't get their refills from their doctors, a lot of people resort to doing actual heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just funny. Like I think I told you this, Mike, but the prosecutor of Baltimore, when she was talking about, she joined the Baltimore City Libertarian meeting, and she was talking about why she's not prosecuting people for marijuana possession.
Is this Marilyn Mosby?
Yeah, Marilyn Mosby.
Okay.
And I pretty much threw her the pitch of like, hey, right down the street is John Hopkins. They're leading the way in this whole like research of mushrooms and stuff. And I think like it, according to your logic, one of the things you're saying is the science behind it. And I was like, well, the science behind this is showing that it's a miracle drug. And I told her, and she laughed at me, and she was like, "Oh well, we don't have that problem in Baltimore." I'm like, "Well,
We don't have-
You don't
yeah.
have depressed people. So
Yeah.
the shrooms hits the big 3 in psychological issues: depression, addiction, and anxiety. You're telling me you don't have people in Baltimore that hit that?
Well, I didn't want to
Like, that's insane.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to like step over my bounds, but like I wanted to say to her, I'm like, well, you have police officers arresting people if they have it in their pocket. So I would say, yeah, you still have a problem.
Right.
For something that is the research right downtown is telling you that it's not as bad for you as everyone once had. These
Didn't she also cross the line into that's a white drug?
Well, yeah, that was one of the things where she was making.
She needs to go to a festival.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Yeah.
She said the whole thing is like it was mostly well, they're disproportionately locking up black people for marijuana, and they don't have that. So she was correlating without having to say it. She did the politician thing. Well, we don't have that problem because it's not a black drug kind of a thing is what the vibe I was getting from what she was telling me. But she straight laughed like when I told her that. I'm like, oh, okay. You didn't laugh when the guy said heroin, but when I said mushrooms, you laugh at me. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Wait, what did she say regarding heroin?
She said we're taking it serious. Yep, we'll definitely look at that as a thing because we know it's an epidemic going on, and we know, she just kind of gave the rundown
regarding legalizing it or
about not arresting,
it?
not arresting people for heroin.
Oh,
and
wow.
Someone said, and she said she was looking into that. She was
Holy
looking
shit.
into that. But then I say mushrooms, and she laughed. She's like, well, we don't have that problem.
Yeah,
here.
that's crazy.
I know. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, she
right.
must be just connecting just like the decriminalization with lowering use, and if she doesn't recognize a high use of it, then that's probably what was going on in her head. She's not making all the other connections.
Is she a boomer?
No, she's young. She's probably a little bit older than me.
Really?
Shit.
Yeah. Marilyn Mosby, yeah. She's not.
Oh,
shit. Yeah, she's
Man,
like, I gotta be
politics
late
sucks.
30s.
I don't know. I mean,
She's
Really?
kind of hot, too.
Convert her that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seducer.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was
baby.
But yeah, so that's just one issue that the Mises Caucus and
That's
the
awesome.
Mises Pack is trying to affect. And we're actually partnering with the 10th Amendment Center on the whole issue coalition thing. So if you go onto our website, we have a page called Our Actions that has a whole bunch of action items that we have over 40 organizers around the country. So like on top of the candidates at the local and county level, we have like a list of these split up into local and state level action items that we're asking them to choose from to do depending on how viable whichever thing is in their area. So that might be, I think we're going to add trying to ban facial recognition technology or stingray technology and stuff like that. But
actually, the science is in, and it really problem solved on that. All you have to do is become a juggalo and paint your face as such, and facial recognition is no longer a problem.
Done. They were ahead of their time.
Does the Mises Caucus know about that?
we are aligned with the juggalos.
Get some corpse paint on there, man. Start listening to some black metal.
But the important thing about this is that there's sample legislation for all of these efforts on there. And just to give you an idea of how important that can be, for me in Norristown, Pennsylvania, I just started showing up to the city council meetings, and it's like a town of 35,000, and it's like 70% voting. 70% of the voter demographic is Democrat voting. The entire board is Democrats. And so I walked in there, and on my first meeting, I walked up to the sheriff, or not, the chief of police, and he attends the meetings, and I just threw it out there and was like, hey, man, what's the state of decriminalization around here? You know, what's going on there? And to my shock, he goes, I don't know, but it's time. We've got to stop throwing people in cages for this, and, nobody has done the
I'm
work.
surprised he didn't give you a cavity search.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, I was too.
Damn. So
I didn't have anything, though.
He flat out
You,
said,
you were just looking for a good time.
Yeah. But no, and so he supported it and basically said, but if somebody did do the work, I would be down for that. And I was like, okay. So it just so happens that we have decriminalized weed in Pennsylvania in several areas. The capital, so Harrisburg is decriminalized, Philly is decriminalized, State College is decriminalized, Lancaster County, which is like the heart of Amish country, Lancaster City. Lancaster City, yeah.
Okay.
Which is like the heart of Amish country is decriminalized. And so I looked over them, and Lancaster actually had like the least restrictive one that I could find. So I literally just took that and replaced like City of Lancaster with Municipality of Norristown.
That's
and
awesome.
then I went to the next city council meeting, spoke to it, assured them all that I would be following up with email, and made my case. Part of which is, I threw some politics in there, which is 70% of the population here is Democrats. In 2017, the Democrat Party adopted marijuana legalization as part of their policy procedure. This is going to be a popular thing. It shouldn't take some random libertarian to be in here doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the language. I brought copies for everybody. And
That's awesome.
and followed up, and then they had me do another presentation, which I brought the best weed lobbyist in the state out, Les Stark of the Keystone Cannabis Coalition, and they supported it. And not only did they support it, but they basically talked like they might put it in committee to add language for expungements, which would make it the best decrim effort in the entire state.
That's awesome.
I think like local, because I know Kyle posted an article like that there isn't a viable libertarian candidate for 2020, and it's like maybe just listening to your examples just at the local level and just how much change could be affected at the local level, that maybe libertarians need to set the bar Like not shoot. Like who gives a fuck about the president, right? Like maybe we should focus our efforts on local initiatives like what you're doing, Michael. And like I think maybe were you involved in like C4L or kind of like
I was aware of them, but I wasn't involved with them.
Okay, because it's kind of like those tactics, and I don't get involved. I don't even think it's a viable organization anymore. But just like the tactics of getting involved at the local level, even like just building bridges with people you otherwise would disagree with, but building those bridges. And
I mean, I do think there's a role for a presidential run, but it certainly isn't to win. Not right now. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But I would say, generally speaking, you're right. The idea that we should be focusing on national politics is a fool's errand. Now, I get
I mean, you can still deliver a message.
Well, you can still deliver a message, but the amount of resources that we're getting into it for the results that we're getting, we're lucky to clear 5% in most of our Senate races. You know what I mean?
We also
Stuff like
haven't
that.
really had somebody who was the most capable of delivering a message.
Well, I would say Larry did a very good job, and he did make history in New York by getting them ballot access, and that is part of why they run it. They have to run some of these national campaigns in order to try to get ballot access for their states. Otherwise, you're getting an absurd number of signatures.
I was talking about like for a presidential run,
right? But but what I'm saying is, I would say Larry Sharp is a good example of somebody who is a good messenger, somebody who is a clear messenger. And even though he cleared that hurdle to get them on the ballot, he still only got less than 5%, and he ran a great campaign.
Oh yeah, Larry Sharp. Props to him. What are your thoughts on Justin Amash possibly jumping in?
I'm supportive of it personally.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical whether or not he's going to do it. Now, I
really?
just want to.
Why?
Well, because of what he said in recent interviews. Now that he's switched.
Yeah.
But I want to clarify that I'm speaking as an individual and not as the caucus, because I feel that while I feel
this
that
is just your opinion, dude.
Right. Well, I just we don't
just
have
your opinion.
We don't
I
have
am
democratic.
shrooms.
We don't have democratic input for the caucus.
Mm-hmm.
So and for the PAC. So it's important to me that I try not to misrepresent people, because Jacob Hornberger is another person that might run that would be very popular with people in the LPMC. So I would say both are popular. So I just want to put that caveat out there. But I'm supportive of it, and I think that he would. So here's the way I see it: Jacob Hornberger would be a great, what I call, in-reach candidate. Like somebody who is connected to the libertarian community, could fire up the libertarians and get them active, and it would certainly be great for us, because him and the Future Freedom Foundation is the kind of orbits that we're recruiting from anyway. Whereas Amash, I think, would be the results candidate that the Prags wanted with Gary.
Right.
But he actually has the principles to where that makes sense. You know what I mean? So, so I think you would have a chance of getting in the debates if Amash ran in there. The question then becomes, is the party ready for that, to take that step? And I don't know that it is.
There's just so much division. I mean, like if you hear the people, like you said, the Prags, like Nick sounds like he's in favor of Sarwark, and his lapdogs, Andy Craig and Adam Bates, I'm sure they would like it.
I think they like it, but and actually hate the fact that I like it.
Yeah, I think so too. Because like guys like Mike Shipley went off on a tangent today in a post saying how much he hates the idea of having
Justin Amash is not a left libertarian,
right? Yeah. That's exactly how it was essentially. Yeah. So I think there's going to be division among that, because everyone keeps saying, "Well, I'm sick of having retread Republicans coming to the party, Republican outcasts." I'm like, well, you know what? Most of us here were Republican outcasts.
Yeah,
I could say I was considered. I never was officially a Republican, but I considered myself as a Republican, I guess, growing up, and eventually it didn't fit me as a person. So I just thought, like coming into Libertarian Party, like maybe we shouldn't shit on people coming from the Republicans. When think about how many people here, just sitting here right now, we're here because of Ron Paul.
Right.
So
I probably would have, if it wasn't for Ron Paul, the people that I was running with, they were going down Noam Chomsky and all that kind of stuff. So I probably might have ended up a leftist if it wasn't for Ron.
Holy shit. We should just call you Comrade Heise.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is sitting in Comrade Wagner's chair.
Yeah, that is Kyle Wagner's chair, dude.
Yeah, I've collectivized this chair.
Oh, man. So, Matt, you wanted to talk about your Facebook that you're in the jail.
Yeah, like I'm in Facebook jail for 7 days.
Yeah. How's it going?
What'd you do this
How
time?
Things going?
Okay, so
Any conjugal visits yet?
Okay,
Took my
That's why
joke.
I'm here, man.
yeah. So what was it? I was posting in Kyle Wagner's ANCAP versus minarchist group, and I was just asking him why he won't allow Kylie Wagner into the group, right? So I said, Kyle, why all the hate for trannies? And apparently that is for me to ask somebody why they hate trannies is against Facebook's standards.
Well, maybe trannies is derogatory, man.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't want to be called trannies.
It was hate speech.
That's
Objectively.
Okay. Hey, so you're Michael Heise or Michael Shipley?
It is interesting how you have words
He's
like
channeling his inner Shipley.
it is interesting how you have words like tranny, which maybe 5-10 years ago were not offensive and were even used within that community.
Yeah.
Dude, that was the name of all the porn I used to watch. Was Tranny Surprise, man.
Wow.
All right. TMI.
All right, anyway.
man.
And actually, that brings up a good point. They actually got rid of using the word tranny in
Really?
things like Pornhub and
I
like the
haven't
more.
searched in a while.
Yeah.
But no, you make a great point because look at it. Like you can't say colored person,
Yeah.
but you can say person of color.
Right.
Think about it. Like this.
Well,
is
there's
the
all
weird-
sorts of words that were acceptable, and then there's actually a phenomenon. It's called the euphemism treadmill. But basically, you have a word, and then it starts. Some people sort of use it derogatory, and then they're just like, okay, we can't use this word anymore. We just invent a
honk.
new word.
like honk.
Yeah, and they just keep like inventing words, and then they keep just getting
Yeah.
used negatively, and then it's like at some point you've just got to be like, it'll never end, because it's just an infinite treadmill, and the only solution is to just stop being so sensitive and just if people are going to be use something in a derogatory manner, just let them, and
Not gonna happen.
But yeah, so it's funny.
7 days in the slammer.
Yeah.
Matt.
Yeah,
7 days down.
Really, like I think anytime you tell everybody that they can't use a word, you're really only just giving that word more power.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
More like hate power. But yeah.
Well, not only that, but I would say free speech. We as libertarians, we like to look at free speech as speak truth to power. You know what I mean? And that certainly is a big part of what it's about, and it's very important. But I would say that the core function of it is actually deeper than that. Now, granted, I'm going to go on some Jordan Peterson shit here, but it's essentially how we moderate and regulate reality. You know what I mean? Like it's how we progress the things that we agree with and shun the things that we disagree with. And if you cut off that
Feedback mechanism.
yeah, that feedback loop in that process, then you're going to have all kinds of paradoxes and gaps and misunderstandings and divisions and all that kind of thing. And well, there's only one organization that would benefit, and we all know who that is. So
Right.
I think it's in their interest to do that, and I think that's part of why it's happening. And I think they're actively, man, this one will piss Shipley off. Well, they're employing what I would call cultural Marxism, because you can't just people act like legislation exists in a vacuum, like you. But we all. So I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with the saying that politics is downstream from culture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
So you have to condition. You have to condition the culture in order to prep them to accept the legislation.
Yeah.
This is not new. like it's just
Yeah.
a new flavor of it.
Sure.
It's and so I would say what they're doing now. So before, what they had to do for like say communism and everything like that is they had to play on people's envy to turn the workers against the owners and the rich against the poor against the rich.
Right.
And galvanize people that way. They're doing that same thing through cultural differences, and that's what it means to be cultural Marxism, because it's being used for Marxist political ends. So they're turning gay against straight, white against black, men against women, and using that to stoke these. I mean, do you guys think it's a coincidence that that a lot of these things, these movements, and these sentiments come from the left?
No, it's
Well, look at the that's you talked about culture. We were going to talk about it this that music festival in Detroit that's going to take place in August, the Afro Music Festival.
Yeah, we
And
were
they're-
going to talk about that. Isn't that like topic 4?
Yeah, but that ties in exactly what Mike's talking about.
But it's
how
anarchy
they're-
basement, dude.
They're talking about reparations. Reparations is it's in the news right now. And then so let's have a festival charging white individuals $20 or $10 more than blacks because they.
I bet you $10 there's a booth to register to vote.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah. But they pulled one of the artists pulled out who's biracial and said it is ridiculous, and pulled out of the festival. But yeah, you're right. Like in the culture, they're conditioning. They're getting us like ready for that to just accept that.
Yeah,
conditioning and dividing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of division going on, and then since we're on the subject of this. Music festival that we were talking about, where they're actually charging people of different races higher prices to enter. You heard about that?
Yeah, I saw the screenshots. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
they've become what they hate. It's crazy.
Do they hate it? It seems like they love it.
Well, they don't acknowledge that is what they've become because they see themselves as the counter, but they've actually become what they hate.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what you were saying about language and how it sort of defines things. They will redefine words like racism to mean it can only occur from the standpoint of an oppressive group.
I'm a racist because I like Austrian economics.
Well, yeah, there's that. But I mean, how they sort of get away with, okay, we're going to charge white people more is, well, you can't be racist toward a white person because a white person is...
They're not the minority.
Right. They're above you in the patriarchy and the hierarchy and the whatever,
Right. And there's no thought to the logic of this because it's like, well, does that change when I go to like Hong Kong?
Right.
If I were to move...
It can't be universally applied. It can only be applied in this specific context with these conditions that you've essentially invented out of thin air.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where is this happening again?
Detroit.
Yeah.
And
that doesn't violate discrimination laws or
no, because white people can't be discriminated against.
But I wouldn't think their government is that ideological. But
yeah, the Afro Future Music Festival in Detroit.
I mean, they don't even really have a government, do they?
And they're saying it's equitable chance at enjoying events in their own community. So they're saying like they just don't want whites that are affluent coming and
buying all the tickets and selling. But
it's weird how that only applies
just let the market decide.
It only applies for them. Like they take the most libertarian stances when it suits their position. Like just bring up abortion. I mean, that's something as simple as that. They take the most libertarian response. They're like, it's my body, my choice.
So so they're going to charge for white people and non-persons of color. It's like, how are you going to determine like what the fuck? And it's funny that like one of the artists that was set to perform pulled, and she's biracial, and just like fuck this, I'm out, and just like this is not a progressive.
So if I say I'm 1/1024th of an Indian, I can get in.
Who knows? I don't know.
You just got to clear the Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that meme where like? Did you guys see that meme where like Elizabeth Warren's hand is being bit by a mosquito, and it's like, oh, she's no more longer.
I posted that in the group. It was so funny.
Yeah. If it's a meme you've seen, Phil probably posted it.
There are questions about its legality.
It's true.
So it might violate a Civil Rights Act of 1964. So who knows? It might not even. It's not till August anyway. So more to probably come.
Oh yeah, but I'm sure it got people fighting each other.
Oh yeah. It's definitely gonna have a lot of people triggered.
So Michael, how do you propose we fight cultural Marxism?
I would say that the best way for us to do that is completely outside of politics. First of all, like as much of an advocate for us getting politically involved. How do we do that? Be successful people. That's really the best you can do. Become doctors, become influencers, become people that other people give a shit about what you think.
Yeah.
And that's really it. I mean, we have to do back to the establishment what the establishment has done for us. We have to take academia back. We have to take entertainment back. Mm-hmm. We have to take all these things back, and that can only be done by taking our ideas and embodying them.
Yeah, that's why it's like you just got to talk about it. You just got to be that beacon, that vanguard of this classical liberalism, or it's anarcho-capitalism, it's just libertarianism. Like you just got to speak it, and just don't be afraid like to just have it come up in a conversation. And I mean, even if it's like stupid, like wearing a shirt into a public place, with some crazy stuff.
Ron Paul's face on it.
Yeah, it's funny because I had my the print guns not money shirt from the from the Mises Caucus, and I wear that into like Target, and I get so many looks like left and right. But it's simple shit like that, like because I'm one of those people that would see something like that and be like, "What's that, man? Like, whoa, what's that?"
Yeah.
Like that's like getting into punk music. Like that was the shit. It was like, whoa, this is harsh. Like they're talking about like no governments and shit. Like that's crazy. And I would just look
crazy,
into stuff
man.
like
It's
that.
crazy, man.
Maybe I'm like
crazy.
one. Maybe
I
I'm
like you, but you crazy.
So I don't know. You know, you never know who that one person might be who's gonna have that story. Like, dude, I saw this one guy with this crazy fucking shirt at a Target once.
My
man.
favorite one is actually my Black Guns Matter shirt, because you
Oh,
get people who I assume are fans of Black Lives Matter who think that you're
they get
making fun of them. So
Yeah.
what's this mean? What are you doing? Are you making fun of me and my experience? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, calm down. It's an organization. Have you ever heard of it? No. Well, yeah, they actually like crowdfund money from the black community mostly and go around to countries where no other Second Amendment organization will go. So they will go into Harlem or Chicago or areas like this and teach people about gun rights, gun safety, gun history, and conflict resolution where this conversation is badly needed. Oh.
Yeah. Mind blown.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah, I need to get one of those shirts too, because I think like, especially in Baltimore, like people are like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Double take. Yeah, but
Yeah, if Phil was gonna get the Black Guns Matter romper.
I was get the black.
They're
cock
cozy
matter.
sleeping, man.
Ethan with his response to your question, Matt, he's like, how do you solve cultural Marxism and with helicopters, according to Ethan?
That was Jared's question.
Yeah, that was my question.
Oh,
dude.
my bad,
But
Jared.
thanks.
Yeah. Well, that's how Ethan would respond. But
Well,
Naturally.
yeah, that's a typical
helicopters.
Ethan response.
All right. Well, speaking of Black Guns Matter, have you been following all the sort of recent developments with Maj?
I volunteer for the campaign.
Okay. So what's going on with? Okay, so he was on some sort of radio program today.
The Maj meltdown.
The Maj meltdown.
Yeah, I don't know. He just posted on Instagram because he's on that WPHT.
He does weekend shows, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he just
Wait, he melted down today because I didn't hear it.
Oh, I didn't.
Well, I don't know if it was a meltdown,
yeah, I don't know
but
if you
he just
listened
said
to
he
it or
was
not
drunk.
today.
he said he like tweeted that he was drunk,
and I'm about to get fired. Like,
and then
hashtag
he
about
said he
to
was going to get fired, and then he also had some tweet about like women staying in the kitchen or something. It was like that was one of his hashtags. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on there?
He's just joking. I mean,
Yeah.
that really. I mean, and it becomes abundantly clear when you
Yeah.
listen to his show, and
Yeah.
especially listen to his pro-gun feminist co-hosts talk about also making very good sandwiches and things
Yeah.
like that.
All
like,
right.
Cool.
So,
It's-
what's the show like on the weekends? When does it air?
from I think 12 to 2.
12. Okay, cool. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, because I just saw the post and was like, "What's this about?" And our friend on the cast, Lee, was just, I guess he was listening a little
He's
bit.
a Delaware guy. He's
Well,
like one of the only people that live in Delaware.
Yeah, so he could
So-
actually tune in.
So as much of a tool as social media is, there's something about the lack of context in text-based mediums.
Oh,
And
yeah.
certain
Of course.
people who have axes to grind or agendas to pursue will use that for their ends to then set the context for, and not give the benefit of the doubt or seek that context out. And I would suspect that that's a lot of what the
Yeah, it was just a
meltdown would
joke.
be.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're just like, we figured it was like, oh, he's probably just clowning around, It's like,
Yeah.
So that's funny.
But
Trolling.
but more back to he also came under a lot of criticism from a lot of people when he talked about how companies should be fined for hiring illegal immigrants, and I think there was a very, of course, everyone gets triggered, like a libertarian, and you gets kind of triggered when he says stuff like that. But I think when it comes to politics, something that I noticed is like Arvind Vora talked about this. He's like, look, you got to talk to your audience, and everything you talk about has to be through the ideas of minarchism, and like you have to deal with the factors of state. You can't just talk about hypothetical libertarian stuff. You kind of got to focus. And he talks about Amash. He talks to like people in his community where he's like he came on here on this podcast and he talked about how he's a translator. Like he translates the message for people in his neighborhood and his environment where he grows, where no one else really goes. So what's been the backlash to that?
Well, there's been some backlash from some libertarians, but again, so I was actually in studio with him. I wasn't on the show, but I was in studio with him to deliver a book, because of this whole thing to give him. But basically, he said the same thing that we were kind of just talking about, that there was context preceding that tweet where he was like essentially calling somebody out on their hypocrisy, and that's the undertone of the message itself. And then if you go back and listen to the show yesterday, he tells you what libertarians want to hear, that ideologically, he doesn't think that there should be borders, but it's the same thing of like, he used the example of the Second Amendment is my permit. Well, that's going to land you in jail if you go into it. So there's a certain reality element, and there's also a certain element of like you said, he has to try to talk to the people who he already resonates with. Yeah. Right. And he has talked about this for a long time, of being an emissary, because the fact of the matter, according to him, is if you go into these communities, we are lumped in with Republicans, we are lumped in with Trump, which is lumped in with racists, which means they're not going to hear you. So that you need people who are from that community, who look like that community, who can represent that community to, as you said, translate it back.
Right.
So, but that also means that you have to understand that community. So one of the things to understand about that community is that black youth unemployment has been 50% for like 30 years.
Yeah.
So where he's trying to tap into and open the conversation around with something like that is the idea amongst that community. It's not an uncommon idea amongst that idea of like, we don't have any fucking jobs. Where do all the fucking jobs go? The illegals suck up, and so you have to open that conversation before you can arrive at the solution of, these same communities have basically been cut off of capitalism. When prior to that, it worked for them despite Jim Crow. There was a point in time where blacks were entering the middle class at equal, either almost as high or higher of a rate than whites. And it's not like there was great schools at that point either.
Right.
It's just that we had blue collar jobs that provided a middle class existence, and that has been chased away from, with regulation, taxation, and inflation, because when you're at the bottom, your dollar counts the most, and when the value of that is eaten, you're that much more ass out.
Right.
And it's created this perfect storm where it incentivizes a choice between the welfare state or other means of making money. And then when they start to pursue the other means of making money and you wage a drug war, then you get all of this disproportionate outcomes and all that kind of shit. It's just, you can't bumper sticker this whole, there's an economic reason for what you call racism, and you can't bumper sticker that. But the only way to open that conversation is to come to the people where they are. And you have to be a person capable of doing that. None of us here could do what he's doing.
Right, yeah. No. We would just get chased out.
Or at least just
ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, what he's doing is really good. And a lot of his campaign, just simple shit like that, where he's just like, a lot of people waste money, like politicians, they waste money on flyers and stuff that just becomes like a frisbee going into a trash can. He's like, I actually spend my campaign funds making shirts for people and stuff where people can hold on to, stuff they could use. And I'm like, simple shit. I'm like, damn, he's right.
What's one thing that he does that's really cool. I've done this with him. It's fun. Is so we have to collect signatures to get on the ballot, and so he used to hustle down in the subways, like back in the day before Black Guns Matter and shit like that. So I've actually bumped into people on the streets that collecting signatures that were like, I think I bought weed from that guy. I'm like, it was good shit too, right? And sign this shit. And so that's awesome. But my point is, he used to make music and he used to sell it down there. He used to hustle down there, and there's a lot of people who know about that. So what he'll do is, to collect signatures, is he'll just go on the trains, and then I was with him with one other person, and basically me and that other person would have clipboards, get on each side of the car, and then he would go to the middle of the car and be like, "Excuse me, everybody. I know you're coming home from work or whatever. You had a long day. I apologize, but my name is Maj Tora. I'm running for city council." Gives his spiel, says, "If anyone's interested, please raise your hand. These guys got flyers." Hands go up. We start handing the flyers out, and then he'll make the spiel of we need signatures, and here's why. And then you get a lot of signatures.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah,
that's a great tactic.
And because we're going to be in Maryland, we got the signature campaign's going to be starting soon.
It's starting soon because we lost ballot access.
Yeah, how does that work in his council district as far as how many signatures?
He's got to get a little bit over 3,200.
Okay,
that's not bad.
Yeah,
but
it's
Maryland,
totally
we got to get
disproportionate to what Democrats and Republicans.
But
they have to get.
Here's the thing about that
race.
race.
Even require it.
Here's the thing about that race. It is a winnable race, and here's why.
Oh, nice.
It's a special situation in that it's winnable because he's running for at large, meaning that he is electable by the entire voting constituency of Philly and not any one ward or district.
Yeah.
So there's 7 at-large seats, and there's a rule in place that any one party is only allowed to hold 5 of them. So the Democrats will run 5, the Republicans will run 5. The Democrats completely run the table. Like their lowest vote getter is like 130,000 votes. Mm-hmm. So this essentially creates a situation where 2 Republicans get on by default. So
yeah, you just have to beat one of those 2 Republicans.
you basically only have to beat the second highest Republican.
Yeah.
Now, what that number was, 35,000 votes would have beat both of them in 2015. 35,000 votes is not that much in like one of the largest cities in the country.
Right, yeah. That's awesome. So aside from going into sort of his community, what's the effort to reach out to like white people or other people that aren't from his community?
That stuff is more standard. You know, we have to do door knocking, phone banking, local media, all that kind of stuff. But that's standard. But the thing is that so his 3 leadoff issues are marijuana legalization. This is probably another one that would be somewhat controversial to people because he's not advocating that we abolish public schools, but civics in schools and education reform. And the idea behind civics in schools is, so part of his mission with Black Guns Matter is not just teaching about guns and not just teaching about gun rights and gun safety, but conflict resolution. And there's a bit of a violence problem in Philly. So we need practical steps to try to combat that, and that is one. And there's already a huge movement in Philly for charter schools. So, you know, he supports that, but you know, the civics in school is basically just to teach people normal life skills, you know, and that's the main way that the schools are failing. A lot of other ways, but one way that schools are failing our kids is that you graduate and you are not ready for life at all. And then you become a Democrat.
It's funny because it's true.
All right. Completely switching gears. Have you guys heard about this whole controversy with Little Mermaid?
I heard about it.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah, so apparently they've decided to cast, is she black or biracial?
Halle Berry is her name.
It's not Halle Berry. It's not Halle Berry.
That's what I
It's
read.
a different chick.
It's Halle Berry.
I read it was Halle Berry.
Her name is Halle Berry. I know.
But it's not the same Halle Berry.
Not the same Halle Berry.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay.
It's another Halle Berry.
Okay. And what is she? Is she?
I don't know. I just know she is a woman of color and African American descent.
So does this trigger you, Phil?
No, it doesn't trigger me. It is funny. The memes have been amazing.
Like,
from
have you
it.
guys seen anybody actually post that they're triggered from it?
No, I
Like,
have.
I've just seen a bunch of people making fun of people who are triggered at it.
I've seen
I
a
saw
lot.
a bunch of posts.
There's been a
Screenshots.
backlash that I've seen where it's a culmination. Like this is like it's not just this one movie. It's
Right.
just this whole thing of like, God,
It goes into the cultural Marxist tactic.
Right,
And
yeah.
whether people can verbalize what I said is this is cultural Marxism, they see it and they feel threatened by it. And it's incremental. And I think in the minds of the people that don't like this is one more tiny incremental step. You know, it's Fabian cultural Marxism.
Yeah, Fabian.
And I think that's it. But like, do I care? No. But I do think it begs the question of why would they do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would they do that? Now you can make the argument. You could make the argument. It's a reasonable argument that we want little black chicks to feel pretty and
Sure.
identify and that could be it. But then
Market
Phil,
demographics.
right? But
And it's 20 years later since, or whatever the case may be. It's like, hey, we want to
Just
sell
like
movies,
30 years
DVDs. Who goes to the movies? Like,
Right.
what's our? It could just be all just strictly economics
Well,
and
right.
demographics.
Well, Michael Heise, why can't the Little Mermaid be transgender?
or all
they
30,
can, but
or
I would
all
still
60
question why they
genders.
did that. You know what I mean? And here's another question: when is the Irish rewrite of Roots coming out?
Why does it have to be
You
a
know what I
mermaid?
mean? Like, is
Well, that's the thing. So you.
I
in the-
doubt
in
it.
the
No, I
case-
seriously doubt it.
Yeah.
Which and that goes to the point of why did they do that? You know what I mean?
Well, there's-
like,
there is a-
they're not going to put white
Yeah.
white characters on.
But there's a difference though in that scenario because you have one that's where the person's color is intrinsic to the actual story.
Well, I'm
Whereas
being flippant. But I'm being
well,
flippant.
no, I get
and,
yeah, and that's
but-
the only thing that would
but that's
bother
why I
me.
said Irish because Irish had a
Right.
indentured
I got
servitude
you.
problem too. But
Well, true. Yeah, yeah.
but
Fair enough. But yeah,
But that's the point. But
Sure.
and then it also goes back to what Phil said of you can't look at if you look at it in a vacuum, it's absolutely ridiculous and retarded, and nobody should care. And
Yeah.
same thing. But if you look at it in another way of like this is happening all over the place, it's just another thing to the people who are afraid of the cultural Marxism, even if they can't verbalize it as such.
They don't.
I mean,
yeah.
you just think of historically white characters that have been taken over by black characters, and I mean, I know there's a disproportionate amount on the adverse. Like when you talk about, there's been a lot of characters like back in old Hollywood that were portrayed, white actors who portrayed like Asians characters, and that's whatever. I mean, like that's fine. Like so, I'm not up in arms about the Little Mermaid.
Actually,
being black.
not a lot of people know this, but when I was first starting the PRL podcast, Jared almost became Asian for the podcast.
No, I was played by an Asian actually.
Stunt double.
Yeah.
But but go back to what I was saying. Like, so I understand like there's this whole balance. They think, well, it can go back any way, and it's true because it's like, there's a meme I just posted in the group, and it's just like mermaids are white.
And people get silly about it.
But it is pretty silly.
But that's the whole point. It's to stoke that. Like I think, well, at least from the political class, it's to stoke that. Because
I agree.
Because we live in we as Americans live in a melting pot that is unique. But when you go outside of that, I'm not saying this is right, but it's pretty normal for there to be cultural conflicts, and it's not even just a cross-racial thing. Europe bombed the shit out of each other for like a long time. It's just normal, part of the human experience that we're still learning and growing and evolving with. But again, that thing that is normal that does exist can be stoked for political purposes.
Yeah, and like there's even inner conflict between, like, I work with a bunch, majority of people I work with are like black and they're African American, so it's like they make fun of each other because they'll be like, oh, that's that light, you're light skin, like, and they just make fun of each other like, oh, you're dark skin, and they just go back and forth with each other all day on the workroom floor, and it's fine, and it's like it's like interacting with each other, and it's like, so when you go back to this, there's gonna be people who be like, well, why couldn't it be a transgendered person who has this role? Like, why couldn't Kylie Wagner play the Little Mermaid? There's no real reason for that. Like,
she's not real. That's probably a good reason.
Do we know that?
So can't confirm.
Cannot confirm nor deny. Yeah.
But I don't know. And it's like
no docs exist.
You go through this whole rigmarole where people are getting pissed off and frustrated because they're like, well, that was once a white character, now it's black. Now it's a black character. But you also think about the same people who are like, get over it, how they would feel if the new Black Panther movie came out and it was a white character playing Black Panther. There would be and you say, well, it's intrinsic to the character, but not necessarily. Not if they're.
This used to be
called
called
like
tokenism.
South African.
Yeah, they're for South Africa, right?
This used to be called tokenism. Like, it used to be insulting.
Yeah,
very much so. Yeah.
Like, what are we saying? Like,
well, how you'd have to have in every commercial, there'd have to be like a white person, a black person, and an Asian person.
It seems very manufactured, like this whole thing.
Very much so.
Yeah,
and that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because it just came out of nowhere, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, why does anybody really care? Or why? Okay, I don't know. It just seemed like
on the surface they shouldn't care. That's the thing. They shouldn't care, but there's this underlying thing.
Torrent.
Just to stoke, just to poke the bear, Just
and the trick is, and again, I'm talking from the perspective of the political class, but the trick is to get people to focus on the single instances that on their own are ridiculous, but collectively put together raise the temperature of the pot that the frog is in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so if you can get them focusing on the half degree here, half degree there, which on their own seems ridiculous and stupid, next thing you know, the shit's 40 degrees higher 10 years down the line.
Just with the fucking sneakers, with the Betsy Ross sneakers.
Right.
So,
how people were so triggered about that.
So in a sense, you're kind of saying that this is like a climate crisis.
A cultural climate?
Yeah. So, guys, we didn't talk about the Forgettysburg Address yet, did we?
No, we did not.
Gettysburg
we need to talk about that because that's what we're naming the podcast.
Okay. Yeah. So we got to.
We totally forgot.
Yeah. So.
Just like Trump in his speech.
Yeah. So Trump was giving a speech the other day, and what he was saying, like,
it was on the 4th of July.
Yeah. It was
4th of July.
Phil,
and
you had the docs.
I got the docs on it. If you guys want to hear,
yeah,
people haven't heard.
So
a lot of people have seen the memes and they haven't really heard his actual words, but I have the direct quote. And so he goes on talking all about the Revolutionary War. But then he trips into this thing where he says that the teleprompter stopped working or whatever, so he just had to improvise from what he remembered. And he says, so he continues on after talking about the the Revolutionary War. He goes, "Our army manned the air. It rammed the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do at Fort McHenry under the rocket's red glare. It had nothing but victory. And when dawn came, their Star-Spangled Banner waved defiant." Totally conflating
Dude,
two wars.
It almost sounds like something like a bad AI would produce.
Right.
If you fed it like a bunch of
status
presidential
bullshit,
speeches, yeah.
And it's so funny because once he's talking about the revolution solely, and then he just goes into War of 1812. Especially if anyone here in Baltimore knows that he's talking about the War of 1812.
And this is on the 4th of July. You could have just stay on target. Just stay on the Declaration. Just stick to that. But no, he wanted to go full revolution.
But then you'd have to know about the Declaration of
1812.
Independence.
So it's like the airports, man. Okay, I give him. Okay,
The airports.
He meant to say ports, but he said airports. Which is fucking hilarious. It's total Trump. Dude, and it's so funny because here you get Chris Matthews is going on the air and he's talking about how there's getting people there with Confederate flags. There's gonna be violence. People are gonna be fighting in the streets because it's a Trump. It's his political campaign rally for himself. That's what he turned the 4th of July into.
And he also had a bunch of tanks and
he had a bunch of
military
tanks.
parade.
Yeah, it's all
flyovers.
There is points to that. I mean, that is very something you see out of Tiananmen Square or at Red Square and in Russia.
Apparently, they actually used to do that here.
The deer leader in North Korea.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Some military parade in North Korea.
Yeah, and so it's annoying, it's stupid. Us as libertarians, we should know, you're glorifying war culture.
Yeah.
They said it could cost up to $92 million for this whole parade, and we said we're into and people are outraged about that, but no, I know Alex, you're into sports ball like me.
Yeah.
So every single time, I go to Nationals opening day game in
What
DC.
kind of sports ball?
all of them.
He's a Philadelphia
Football,
fan like
yeah.
you, so
Oh, word. Trust the
Yeah.
process, bro.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. The process is coming to fruition. Dude, the starting lineup's going to be beast next year.
Hell yeah.
I'm in Washington.
anyways.
There's no process, but anyway. So I go to the opening day every year, and there's a flyover, and that costs $500,000 every time they do that to do a flyover. They said, but when it comes to man time, air, just getting everything ready, it costs a total of $500,000.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. I went to the last Eagles open practice. It was last year, and they had the whole fucking National Guard, and there was 6 Blackhawks circling around the Lincoln Financial Field, and it's first off, that's fucking sketchy because I know Army mechanics, and that's 9 times out of 10, that's why those motherfuckers go down. Blackhawks go down, and they're circling around, not too high off the stadium, and it's fucking hell. But everybody's America, and just I'm not it's a free practice, and they got 6 helicopters circling around for
Could have been
about
part of
10
that contract.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That military contract.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a recruitment tool, and nobody gets upset about that.
And the military pays, they pay the NFL $8 million, $9 million or something
free,
to do
that's
this.
free recruiting.
So what Donald Trump did, and it's so funny. There was a great meme. Ed posted in the group. Ed, you're awesome. It's funny. He got this scoop on me, and it was just that. It said it cost $92 million to the taxpayer. He said, unless you're a Democrat, and then since the government paid for it, it was all free.
It's just free, yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's true, and it's free press, I guess. It's free, quote unquote, for the military. That's all his parade was, and apparently a lot of stations wouldn't cover it. I only think Fox News was shocking. Was the only one that would show this parade on their local affiliates or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't see any footage. Or
I
anything.
didn't watch 1 second of this thing.
Me neither.
It was pretty much blacklisted by the media.
You're right, yeah. But of course they are all saying it's causing violence.
If it was the proper deer leader, it would have been all over.
yeah.
Of
If it was their sanctioned proper or deer leader, then yeah.
right.
Okay.
But
So
the memes are great after the fallout of his gaffe.
Dude, it's hilarious. I love it.
So we're about out of time on here. Michael Heise, is there anything you want to say before you go off?
So I guess I'll give a quick rundown on some projects that we're working on
Please
besides just the candidates and the issue coalitions. So we just launched some original content that requires crowd feedback called Ask an Austrian. So you can go to askanaustrian.com and fill out the email form. And what that basically is just asking questions. If you have questions about libertarian theory, libertarian ethics, Austrian economics, we will get them and we will forward them to a Austrian economist who will answer them on video, and we will publish it. It's Ask an Austrian. The one that I'm really excited about is we just created the event page. We are organizing a rally in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. called Peace Over Politics. And the idea here is to get 6 speakers, 2 speakers, all of them anti-war, 2 from the left, 2 from the right, 2 libertarian, and try to bring the camps together and talk about war and peace.
Oh wow!
Who do you have so far?
Totally
that you can
interesting.
tell us about.
Well, so far we have 2. We have invites out.
Try to get Tulsi Gabbard.
We would like to. We would like to for one of the left wing speakers, but Scott Horton has agreed to do it, and Michael Bolden of the 10th Amendment Center has agreed to MC it. So that's how we're going to get the sneaky majority. Is he'll be the MC, and so he'll be the third libertarian.
Nice.
So I'll also I already have it. I already took off for it from work. I'll be there. This is one thing I think we should all get together and get down there. There's going to be a lot of people and try to make this as big as possible.
You get the band back together.
Well, here's the one thing
that's Paul activism back.
Well, here's the thing that's important about that. It's really important that libertarians show up, and the reason it is because I've been to anti-war rallies recently. In the public consciousness, the anti-war issue is owned by the left. As sad as that is, and I mean, I've been to them, and it was great, but it was also a mostly older crowd. I mean, there was young people there, but it was a lot of older people there. I would say the majority. Point being, though, is that if we don't show up and cast that contrast, it's going to be more of the same. Yeah. So we have to show that there is anti-war movements that give a shit in other movements but the left.
Definitely. And when is this taking place again?
September 21st, which the UN has designated as International Day of Peace.
Yep.
Nice.
Cool. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and I know, I'm going down, so I got some room in my car. So if anyone's coming from north, hit me up on Facebook.
Let's road trip, bro.
There's probably not going to be much extra room in your car.
You could ride at Phil's station wagon.
That's funny. That's funny. I'm gonna add that to your list of funny fat jokes.
Yeah, Phil's got a station wagon. Yeah, doesn't Phil ride a Geoprism?
Yeah. No, dude.
I've got a little Prius.
No, I got a Toyota Camry. Thank you very much. All right.
I've driven a fucking 96 Hyundai Accent, bro. It's all good.
Oh, Jesus.
So, I'm excited about this. I want to make this a big thing. So, anybody, if you're in the area, you could just come. This would be great. Just show up. I'm so excited about that.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Anything else, Matt?
Yeah, so that's about it.
So, the main website is lpmisescaucus.com, and then if you want to become a supporter, you can go to MisesPack.com, and you can become a monthly donor for as little as $5 to help us.
I am right here.
Word.
Yep.
I need all of you guys. I need that promo. But basically, that is to help us fulfill our vision of a decentralized, bottom-up libertarian revolution, which ironically is Hoppe's strategy, and if you talk to everybody in the party, that's what they want, but they just don't know that Hoppe talked about this in 1997.
Well, that's because you're a racist.
Yeah.
Stop being a racist.
I don't know, though. I mean, Hoppe, didn't he seemed to say some, shady things.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know.
But economically, he's flawless.
But the point I'm making is he gave a speech in 1997 called What Must Be Done that outlined in great detail a bottom-up libertarian revolution. And I'm just making the point that if you talk to Libertarian Party members, most of them will say that's what we need to do.
I think Mike Shipley said something about that. Or wasn't he talking
it's where
about
I got the idea.
Unity?
It's where, that's where I got the idea. Mike Shipley was like, I read this Hoppe book, man. And he
was
some great ideas.
He loves it from the bottom up. For completely
bottom immunity, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, so also, guys, we have a Patreon now. So if you want to help keep the lights on down in Anarchy Basement, you can contribute a minimum of $1 per month, and you will gain access to our After Hours program.
We got to beat Liberty Hangout. We got to do it.
Settle down. And then we also have T-shirts over at libertariancountry.com. If you type in the code PRL or the code PRL podcast, you will receive a 10% discount. Until next time, live free
or die.